Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Gabriel Brent, and I am the creator slash developer owner of the Epizone software. And today we are doing the Swing Pub. So today is not about the software; it's about understanding the markets, and we are going to go through a bunch of different markets here, and we are going to be looking at what's going on in the markets in general, as well as general thoughts on the different market conditions. We're going to be doing a lot of Forex and a few futures, ETFs, so we will be covering a lot of information here. So let's get started. First off, let's look at the forex pairs. I'm going to be looking at the Euro USD, and with the Euro USD, we've had price come into this weekly zone. So just so you guys know, and I do expect a lot of people here to be pretty familiar with the Epizone software. If you're not, please feel free to check out the website or to come to one of our other open events during the week. Um, Basically, what I'm seeing here is price retesting a weekly level, okay, and failing to do something. So then it came down here to the demand, and we've kind of been, or kind of seeing price flow in between supply and demand on the big weekly chart. Okay, so what does that mean for our daily chart? Okay, well, last week we defined the trend follow as down. So we have a little TF and a little CT up here above this point where we found the top of the weekly zone that we bounced down from. So you can kind of see on the weekly we're again bouncing from high down to low in the direction of the trend. Our background is painted via the apotrender, and it is there to keep us in the trend even though we get big pullbacks sometimes. So that is what we're still looking at here. Now, we've had price come back up here and retest the highs again. Also on the weekly time frame, it looks pretty much like it's just retesting the top of the weekly zone, or I wouldn't say the top of the weekly zone, but you know, pretty deeply in there, So it's a good retest. So I think really what I'm looking at is the same type of deal of what we were looking at last week. Trend follow to the downside, counter trend above that point, and really above probably this zone up here, because I have a feeling, and I don't know this for sure, but I have a feeling that the top of this zone on the daily has fractal symmetry with the weekly zone. Well, it's a little bit. I redrew it on the daily here, or excuse me, on the weekly, so you can see how in NinjaTrader we can have one drawn object jump onto the other chart. So I think that's pretty interesting. Those levels are kind of overlapping here. So yeah, that's I figured that those would overlap a little bit better, but um, apparently not. So we'll see. Um, I was thinking that this daily zone would be inside of the weekly zone, but spoke too soon apparently. So anyway, I'm still thinking the same is true this week as it was last week. Trend follow to the downside, counter trend to the upside. We are not in an area of resistance right now, so um, if we were looking to take the short here, we'd really want to be in an area of resistance. Okay, so on our smallest time frame, I'd be looking for good resistance points, kind of like what we saw maybe a couple days ago, or yesterday, I should say, bouncing into this resistance area and then popping back down. Cool thing with this, now I'm just showing you the indicator just the APA zones on here, but if you put the full package of APA zones on here with the methodologies, really some nice things come about. So I think that's pretty cool. When we hit OK, we can see a little diamond up there. And what that diamond represents is possibly a trend follow short down there. So you can see where we've been getting little red diamonds along the way. So those are all more of a trend follow type of application, considering we're still in a downtrend. But I think I'll go back to the normal zones, but that's just for the, well, actually, you know what? It's the entry chart. I'll just leave it as such. It doesn't really hurt anything. So moving right along, let's go over to the Aussie dollar. Same kind of thing happening here on the Aussie dollar. We've retested a high weekly zone, and now we are coming down. Okay. And over here on the daily, which is, again, where I draw context from, we can see how the weekly zone kind of overlaps a couple of the daily zones as well. You know, apparently I did not have the drawings done here for us, but again, we're looking trend follow to the downside. And CT to the upside. Okay, so this is where the weekly zone is right there. And I'm just going to take off my zones just so that I make it a little bit clearer to see here. CT up there. Okay. Now, the trend has been really flat for the past, gosh, I guess it's been the past month and a half here. So that's pretty interesting. It could just mean that we're taking a little break and we're going to resume the trend here shortly. But again, if the trend is down, you know, you want to sell high, buy back low. And I really want to see a breakout of the overall low over here. I really would like to see that breakthrough. Okay. That's when I know the trend is continuing on for sure on our context chart. Now, buying low and selling high, or vice versa, sounds really easy to do, but I think it takes some more of a process to actually do it. Kind of like on this chart, this is getting into the lows, so I don't really want to be selling straight into the lows, banking on it breaking. I would rather sell, let's just say, a pullback right here. I'd rather sell that than I would bank on it going even further down. So that's the prediction of what we're looking at on this market and kind of how that works. So again, I would not be looking to sell here. Okay. Now, as far as our next market goes, let's move over to the euro. Oh, we've already done the euro USD. Let's do the euro pound. Okay, on the euro pound, we've been watching this one for some time. Actually, we've been watching a lot of them for some time. But I think this one is, it feels kind of rangy here, you know? It did not break through to the downside. So I feel range happening. And looking at it from our last week's perspective and what I was seeing last week, as I recall, these two little circles here represented areas that I was expecting kind of a pullback in over the past few days, over the past week. It's blasted through both of those on our daily context chart, which I think that's very interesting. You know, that's very telling as to what's going on here, you know. So I'm going to start treating this as a range more so than I am going to treat it as a trend follow. Even though the trender is coming down, we can see a nice pullback up there to the trender in the weekly zone, and that looks all well and pretty. It still hasn't made a new low, okay, and it's really tried to do that a few times. So I want to be respectful of what price action is telling me and say, hey, I need to treat this like a range because that's what price action is telling me. Like the levels are really kind of bouncing off that weekly, So I want to treat this as a range overall. So right now I'm just gonna like kind of label that as a rangy market this week. And if we're in a range, I want to sell high at the higher points, okay? But I shouldn't mind trying to maybe take this up here again, okay? So this is a counter trend, but it's at the low point, and if we're in a range, we want to play the extremes of the range, right? I don't want to force the trade by any stretch of the means, so a big thing for me will be waiting for confirmation on anything in here. So right now, this could be an interesting setup if this bar closed lower than this green bar coming into there, but it's not. So we have to wait. It has confirmed this level to some degree and the consolidation that this level represents. But you know what? Realistically, it can go higher than this. It can definitely touch the weekly zone up there. If we get another candle, I won't be surprised if it's green and comes up here even further. Okay? So that's a little bit of what I'm looking at. Now, if you guys want to watch any particular markets or anything like that, please let me know. I'm just going to be moving through kind of my normal ones here. You can put them in the questions box. All right. So let's look at the indexes, the index futures. Okay, so with the ES market, we are steadily moving up. Boom, 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 boom. It's a very slow, steady move. Right now we're doing kind of a retracement here off of this level that we've defined as such. Okay. So, or I should say, it's a pullback to the downside. All right. Does it mean that this trend is over? Absolutely not. We've really had one failure to break the high, and we've been a little bit lower, but we haven't broken anything major here lately that would make me think to the short side really hard and heavy, So it feels like we're still in this small, or actually I should say large range and really a chop area that we've been into for the past several months here. So I would expect for this to continue on because it just seems to be staying like this. A lot of overlap in all of these bars, So a lot of indecision in the market in general, I would think. So the trender has started to push to the upside here. We know that we've had a couple retests on this level now, and we're pushing even lower. So we'll see what happens here. But the overall trend is up. Okay. So is this a good place to buy right now? I don't know. It's not meeting any of my setups per se, but it doesn't mean that it might not meet yours, you know. But for me, I don't really like taking this whole zone on as a big chunk of risk right here, because this is too big of a zone. That's just way too big, you know, taking that whole zone right there. So I want to wait for price to confirm that it's going to do something, and then take it as it accelerates in my direction, hopefully. Okay. Um, on the euro pound, am I waiting for a double bearish engulfing bar to go short on your entry chart? You could, yeah. Nothing like that has happened yet. Let's look. Let's look at some ETFs here. All right, XLE on the big weekly chart, we've been pushing down steadily. Feels like we've kind of found this trend again, or I'm sorry, this range type of thing here. So I'm expecting to see it retest this low. Looks like I did some crazy drawings on here, but let's really make it a little bit more simple here for us. Okay, so right now we're touching this big daily zone. The trender is absolutely flat. That is very interesting in my book, that it is absolutely flat. Given that that's flat, and given that on the weekly chart it looks like a range, I find that extremely intriguing. Okay, so does that mean we could bounce around here for a lot longer? Yeah, I believe that we could. So the market can do anything at once, but right now, you know, we can easily identify that, hey, it's in a range. Okay. So as far as this stuff goes, personally, since it's in a range and it's not at the extremes here, I would be cautious about taking anything to the long side until it really hits that level. Okay. So I still think that we have a little bit further down there to go before we're going to hit that level. And that's okay, you know. Just so you can kind of see where it is in relation to the daily zones here. Okay, so we did get a bounce off of this level. But if we're in a range in the overall weekly chart, does that mean we could take this to the downside? Well, yeah, we could. We could, sell high and buy back low. And if we're in the middle of the range, that could happen there. So that's not a bad idea, but it is in the middle of the range, and I don't really like to be playing in the middle of the range. I'd rather play on the extremes of the range. Had a couple questions about the USD JPY. Let's move over here to that market. Now, this market is making new highs. All right. So it's been very, very cool to see this market explode. Uh, to be honest with you, it went in between the nice range and then playing off the extremes of the range. You've gotten a nice little trend that has continued on. Okay, so that's how I see that. And I think I'm going to go ahead and take out some of these drawings here, but I really love how it did get in the range. It was playing in between these two major levels. We finally broke through, and I would say that this resistance, or on the daily or on the daily chart, I would call this more of the supply. The supply has gotten taken out altogether, and it has done the flip-flop. So once the level used to look like this, and now it looks like this. Okay, so I think that's very, very cool. And this thing just keeps on going higher. So anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about that one. Again, trend follow to the long side, counter trend to the short side. We want to define the trend and then run with the trend as much as possible. All right. So looking over here at ZB. All right, on ZB we have been pushing lower. We've been making new lows on these weekly candles. These are really, really big candles here. All right, so on ZB, the daily charts, and I'm just gonna identify where this weekly level is right here, just so that I can use it for my own reference point on my context chart, which is the daily. All right, we can see that on this chart here, last week, as I recall, we were looking at the retest of this high. Okay, and since that point, obviously it retested this high to the tick, and we've been putting in some nice candles to the downside. Some very nice pushes down here. Okay, and it looks like we can go a little bit lower, to be quite honest with you. So after this nice push down, a new low, looks like it's taken a little breather and given us a little bit of a retracement here. So could be an opportunity to jump into the downtrend, take it down to the weekly level. So over here on the 60-minute, we need to find a good place to be sellers. Okay. So we want to sell high, buy back low. I'm going to be looking for those type of levels, and as we retest the 152, 153 area, I'm going to see what happens at those areas to hopefully be a seller somewhere in there. That's what I would be looking at in general. Okay, so those levels are interesting. Does it mean price, just because the zone's there, does it mean that price is going to turn there? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. These levels, we need to take them into consideration with the trend. What is the trend doing? Okay. So these are potential areas that we can be looking for price to come into and then turn around, and then I like to wait for confirmation. So maybe the confirmation of price action will happen a little bit outside of the zone. Maybe it'll happen in the zone. You know, like if we look at it on a daily chart, it actually happened on the inside the zone here. Okay, so That's kind of what I see as far as that big daily chart goes. All right, so we'll see what happens there. But any other markets that everybody would like to look at? I'm going to look at gold real quick. I think that's interesting. So on the weekly chart, we had a trend line drawn here, of all things. Following that trend line, I do like to use trend lines in my personal trading here. And if I turn off the zones and just kind of look at that trend line, I can kind of see that on the daily time frame, you know. All right. So now let's talk about context here. The trend line and the apotrender all give us ideas to the downside. Okay. So we want to be mindful of where the trend is pointing us. And if the trend is actually down, we would expect to see this support zone be taken out. I want to always look at the zones in context of the trend. The zones that are against the trend move, I expect them to break unless we're in a range, okay? And vice versa. You know, so if the trend is down, then support should break, resistance should hold. Now, what happens if the most recent resistance point doesn't hold? Does that mean that the trend's over and that the system has failed? Absolutely not. You know, these are levels that we are to be watching. You know, and I don't want to, you know, front run these levels by putting an order right outside the zone. So as soon as like price comes up here, I get triggered. Because what if price decides not to respect that level and it goes to the level just above it? Well, that would be that aqua level right there, okay? So if it goes to that aqua level, does it mean that the trend is over? Well, absolutely not, you know. Just wait for confirmation of price action of the level and then take it in the direction of the trend from the context chart that you're using. So in here, I'm using the daily charts, and in swing trading, you know, weekly, daily, and 60-minute is what I'm using. But maybe if you want to use daily and 30-minute, like we've seen John use a couple times, or weekly, daily, 4-hour charts, you know, that could work too. But there is a somewhat of a symmetry pattern that we're looking at here, and I like to use like kind of like the middle chart as the context chart. So in most setups, or in the AppleZones community, we learned how to take all of this stuff and really apply it just to 2 charts. And if you really, really wanted to, you could put all 3 of these charts into one chart and get all the levels all into your entry chart. Now, the problem with doing that I've found is if we combine all the levels, even though we have really powerful software that allows us to do that, we need to still define context off of like the middle time frame, okay? And by just looking at your entry chart, a lot of times your eye gets focused too much on your entry chart, and it just starts looking at every single level as, oh, there it is. Ooh, that one's it, you know, and you begin to justify all kinds of stuff. And we really want to avoid that, you know, as we're looking at this stuff. So that's pretty much what I'm thinking here on these charts and how I use these charts in combination with the zones. If you don't know what the colors of the AppleZone software means, or if you have questions about like the methods, the Apple methods that plots the diamonds, you can come to another one of the weekly events that we have and can answer all your questions there. But that's really what we focus on is levels-based trading, trend lines, gaps, all kinds of price action in general, all that type of good stuff. So let's go ahead and do a couple trend follow ideas, okay, and counter trend ideas. What are we really looking at on this market? So we've defined the trend is down, right? So we can have the trend follow be to the downside, and then the counter trend trade is also a possibility. And I'm just going to define it as happening above this level here, okay? And actually, I should be doing this on the daily time frame, so let me apply that to all charts. And now I will be on the daily here. Okay, so on the daily time frame, I would define the counter trend up above this daily zone, and probably really above this one. Okay. And then the trend follow is obviously to the downside here. Now, if we look at the weekly a little bit, I kind of can see some consolidation happening here, or some coiling happen. So I want to be aware of that, but I still feel that we are in the direction of the trend as we've drawn the trend line up here on the big weekly time frames. So I'm still looking for that that overall trend follow idea to happen to the downside. All right, guys. Well, it's been about 30 minutes here. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. But I just want to thank everybody watching the recording for spending some time with us today. And for everybody in the live audience, we'll get more into a questions answer time. And we will see you next time for another Swing Pub.